All righty. Welcome, Jessica Kraitzick, who I'm very, very excited to have you on the Eternal Strength podcast. And I also will put this on WRFG's On Your Mind, which is a podcast that I'm a co-host of. And they have some incredible talks on consciousness and psychology and counseling, psychotherapy. And so I'll put it on both platforms. But I'm very excited to have as my guest Jessica Kraitzick from Atlanta Conscious Parenting. And Jessica, I'll kind of tell our audience, your co-partner, however you refer to Julie. And what's Julie's last name again?
Levitt.
Levitt, that's right. So Julie Levitt and Jessica Kraitzick run Atlanta Conscious Parenting. But I initially connected with Julie when she presented with Dr. Shefali at the Evolve conference, and then was so grateful to have both you and Julie come out to Eternal Strength and tour and us spend some time together talking about conscious parenting, the journey of parenting, the work that you guys are doing with parents. And so, Jessica, let's just start there. I'd love to hear about you as a woman, as a mom, as a conscious parent, and however you want to do an intro, and then kind of talk maybe about what led you to conscious parenting.
Okay, will do. Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for having me. And we loved seeing your facility. It was mind-blowing what you're doing and just really inspiring how you've taken something and been out of the box. And that's really what conscious parenting is as well, is it is out of the box. It doesn't so often as parents, I'm almost 50. So in generations past, it's like the kid's fault, the kid's fault, the kid's fault. And we expect these little children to just like own all of our shit. Excuse me for saying that, but
no. Yeah.
And so my journey came with being raised really traditionally in a very traditional home. But a good, nothing negative about my parents, wonderful parents. And I had two children, two boys, and they were super easy. And I just felt like I was the best parent in the world because my boys were easy. Little did I know when I had my third child, a girl, that she would just rock my world in terms of my emotions and my sort of inability to parent her as effectively as I thought I was with my boys. And at that point, I think Lily was around 3, and I had met Julie, and Julie was in the thick of conscious parenting. She had gone through the first cohort to become a coach. And so she was constantly talking about it. And I started researching Dr. Shefali, and the first thing I heard, I was just, wow. It just spoke to my core of what it means to be a human and a parent. And I decided to go along on this journey too. And conscious parenting has helped me with my children. It has helped me with myself. It has helped me with all my relationships, because it has really shined a light on me. And that's what it's about, because it's about how am I showing up? What is the dynamic that's the stressor, for example, with like my daughter? So let me go way back to like, my sons would go into timeout easily. Yeah. My daughter wouldn't, and timeout was a very sort of old school traditional thing. Your child does something wrong, you put them in the naughty chair and you make them sit there. And really, what does that really teach them? Yes, it teaches them that they did something wrong. But my daughter wasn't having any of that. And she was like a tall girl. So she was heavy for me to lift up and force back into the timeout chair. And it just didn't work. So I had to really look at myself and where were these dynamics? What was the issue? And the issue was really that she was triggering me because she wasn't the good girl. And I was always the good girl. I did what my parents expected. I listened. I didn't speak unless I was spoken to. I mean, I always got praised for being so well behaved and for clearing the dishes and being such a joy to have around. So my generational expectation, and my mom was also the good girl, was that Lily should be the good girl.
Yeah.
Why isn't Lily doing how I was? Why isn't Lily falling into that mold of being the pleaser and the good girl? And thank God, thank whoever that I found this, because I now don't want her to be the good girl.
Wow.
I'm so happy that she is this strong girl who speaks her mind, who isn't a pushover. And it takes two. So she has parts of me and she has parts of her dad, of course, and her dad is very strong and outspoken. But it's so intriguing because the conscious parenting model of the generational patterns is so spot on. And when you can see it, you can change it, or you can start to be aware of it and try to change it and really heal yourself, heal your own inner wounds, and help your child be the person they're meant to be, not the mini Jessica. Lily does not need to be the mini me. She needs to be Lily, who has many strengths and gifts. And, it remains to be seen. She's only 11. But so it's
Right.
been a wonderful journey. It's a constant, as you know, being in the field, it's constant growth. You're constantly working on yourself and helping yourself change and grow and learn. And yeah.
Jessica, you're so awesome. I get chills even talking to you, because how I can see that you embody it. You've
Mm,
been through your own journey of it, and now you're at a place where you're trying to help other parents do the same. But you
yeah.
mentioned a couple things, this term generational expectation, which
Yeah.
I think is really, it's embedded, it's ingrained in us so deeply that we don't even question it. We
Right.
just operate from a place of, like, this is what I was taught was successful or right, or
Mhm.
what a family system should look like, or what a child should behave like. And I ingrained all of those things and held on to them. And now I'm projecting that on my own children, with totally unconsciously, just going,
Totally.
you need to, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you behaving like this and
Hmm.
seeing the world like this and
Hmm.
responding to my parenting like this? And
Hmm.
you said something really beautiful about Lily, where you said, before you did the abundant amount of work to become a conscious parent. And I think that's always, you're always either working on it or you're not. So I don't think it's like you become a conscious parent and then you're
Right.
like, I'm good, I'm actually a conscious parent now, so I'm fine. It's like, no,
No.
it's a toolkit that you continue to work on, almost like
Yes.
uh before, like if you wanted to use meditation as a term, it would
Hmm.
be like somebody who started meditating. It's not like
Yeah.
you're going to stop now. It's just a
No.
practice that you, conscious parenting is a practice that you have, that you engage in now. But you said beforehand you wanted so desperately for Lily to be a certain way, to
Hmm.
be a quote unquote good girl, and be submissive and behave
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
respond to people this way. And then you said you're so grateful that on the back end of doing a tremendous amount of conscious parenting work, looking at yourself, looking at how Lily triggered you, you're at a
Hmm.
place where you're like, you know what? I'm glad that she's not that. I'm glad I can see
Absolutely.
her strengths now. And I
Hmm.
don't know if you know Donald Winnicott.
Mm-mm.
He's a developmental psychologist, wrote tremendous amounts of books, and I'll send you a beautiful video on him and his work. But he talks about how dangerous the um, obedient child is.
Oh, yes.
Because
Yes.
even if behaviorally they are obedient and they do everything they need to be told by their parents, by society, by culture, at some point in their own growth and development, they start to feel their own sense of individual, authentic impoverishment. Like they
Hmm.
never expressed
Right.
themselves, how they thought and how they felt, and everything became about pleasing others. The
100%.
And so you watch those individuals become adults, and they're in marriages that they don't want to be in, and
Hmm.
relationships where they've sacrificed their own voice, their
Yeah.
own feelings, their own authenticity, just to be in the good graces of others. And
Yes.
I think it's so hard to see when we're parents, because when you're a parent, you just want your kid to be safe, make good
Hmm.
choices, and behave in a certain way that's not making things quote unquote difficult. And it really becomes like a societal functioning thing. You're like,
Yeah.
look, I got a job, I got to pay bills, we got
Right.
taxes, there's
Yeah.
school, there's society. Like, can we just do this with no disruptions?
Yeah.
And
As
the kid
if.
comes up, yeah, what'd you say?
I said, as if, like they don't know
Yeah,
about bills or taxes. They don't care.
right.
We're
And
thinking, why don't you know this? Why don't you know that I have all these responsibilities?
and then looking at your kid and being like, don't you see everything I do for you, all the stress that I'm under? Why would you do this? But
Um,
Shefali says it so well. She's like, nothing that your kid does is a direct um, response to you.
right.
It's them going through all this developmental growth and thought and expansion. And so if you're taking everything that your kid does personally, and
Exactly.
that's hard for parents, especially when you hit the teens and parents are telling you directly, I hate you, mom. I hate you, dad.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
Parents are going, oh my, they're internalizing all of it. But the most important
Hmm.
thing is to recognize your child is on a journey
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
unforeseen expansion, ego identity,
Yes.
peer relationships, interpersonal and intrapersonal reflections
Hmm.
about themselves and the world and
Hmm.
the relationships, that it's like, no wonder there's so much emotionality and challenge in that time period, and we've all walked through it. And so I just think what you said is beautiful, but you said a quote, and you said, when you can see it, you can change it. And it
Hmm.
really
Yeah.
truly is becoming consciously aware of
Yes.
yourself. And you said at
Yes.
the beginning, you said it's not just you said conscious parenting helped you as a human. Not so
It
it's not
did.
like it only helps parenting. It helps
Mm-mm.
you look at yourself and do depth work. And when
Yeah.
you do that, you can heal yourself. Then you can have these relationships that aren't blinded by and obstructed by your unhealed traumas.
Yeah.
That's so
And
awesome.
you spoke about how you know, uh, the part of it affecting you as an adult and or being a pleaser and growing up, and how does that look? So I was a pleaser, came from a long line of pleasers,
Yeah.
and tried to raise a pleaser. And that dynamic with my own part, my husband, was very uh, riddled with strife for a little while I was going through this, because I was starting to see the parts of me that needed to change, and Dr. Shefali calls it a death. You're basically, as you go through the process, you're saying, this isn't working for me anymore. This little girl who's trying to please everybody, like, goodbye. I'm done with you. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm a, bitch all the time. I'm just saying, like, it just means you're recognizing the areas that don't serve you, because you're maturing, you're growing, you're becoming an adult. And so much of conscious parenting is growing up the adult, the inner child, the ego within us, to become the adult that our children need, as opposed to being that little child who's trying to raise children to be adults.
Yes.
And
Oh man, Jessica, you're awesome. Well, like you, because you talk about it, and that little kid is impulsive,
yeah,
scared, fearful, fear, anxiety,
yes,
impulsivity, emotionally reactive, and
yes,
we all have that. But I
yeah.
love Shafali's work because I think it's doing a deep dive into internal family systems, which is another
Hmm.
depth work. a lot of Don Miguel Ruiz's work in the Four
Mhm.
Agreements. He
Mm,
talks about the same thing. He says, look, from the time we're young, we're conditioned and indoctrinated with what it means to be good or bad. And we're
right.
domesticated by our families, whether they have good intentions or not. It just is what it
Mhm.
is. But we make all these agreements with ourselves when we're younger, and then we get older. And his encouragement is go back into the agreements you made with yourself that you once thought were truth, and get rid of the false agreements that no longer serve you, and
Mm,
embrace four new agreements that can drastically change your life if you really put your energy on that. And when you talk about growth and maturity and empowerment, um, and to your point, it's, one of my favorite quotes is, the goal is to love everyone, but
mhm.
care what they think about your journey and what you need to do for yourself. And you can do both of those things, but so many times we find the people pleasing is like, I can't, I do
Mhm.
this out of guilt, or
Mhm.
what would it be like to be in the bad graces of another? But then I love Brene Brown talks about it, and she's like, look, you can keep doing that, and all you're going to
Mhm.
do is build massive amounts of resentment and
Yes.
contempt and
Yes.
anger for these
Right.
people. So if you really
Exactly.
love them and you want to have a good relationship with them, then you have to speak your truth,
Mhm.
and you have
Yes.
to put boundaries. And boundaries are, they're not people pleasing. Boundaries are, I can't do this.
Exactly.
And
Yes, exactly. I mean, you have to have this whole process is called conscious parenting, but you're really parenting yourself to be the best person you can be for your children. And you are
oh, I lost your audio.
you're
You
learning to set
yeah.
boundaries. What does that even mean? Many people don't understand what a boundary is. They think it has to be a stone boundary that doesn't move. But so often what we say is that the stone boundaries are for safety. So health, no running into a street with a car that could hit you, things that are really life or death safety. And when I say health, that also relates to like hygiene. So brushing teeth is a pretty hard boundary, but there are ways. I know many parents will be like, but my kid never brushes his teeth. And there are ways to deal with that. So don't freak out that you're but many of our boundaries we say are sand boundaries
Mm,
because with a child things are constantly changing and how they are one day to the next, and you can these sand boundaries have to be a little bit flexible in certain ways. You can't be hard lining like so many of us grew up or our parents grew up, where you don't budge, because
mm.
that's when the child doesn't feel seen, they don't feel heard. Having a rule, say, for all three children, and you have children that are so different, like you just it doesn't work. It's a recipe for really for failure because every child is different, their needs are different. So it is really a skill to learn what is a boundary and what is a boundary for me. Like you said, how does this make me feel? This person's walking all over me, or I'm giving, and now I'm resentful. That's not serving myself, and it's making me resentful. And then it comes out in other ways. It's really the awareness of how do I feel, which is so important. And so often parents, we just throw ourselves aside. It doesn't matter how we feel, especially moms. They're just like the martyrs who will do whatever and doesn't matter. But no, it does matter, because when you don't feel seen or valued, it comes out, and it comes out often towards your children because you can take it out on the people you love the most, right? So,
Jessica,
mm,
you're, yeah, very profound, because you're right. It does. A lot of it makes me think of Carl Jung's work and the
mm,
unconscious. Whatever we repress will show itself. It's not like you can just push it away and it won't show up. It's going to show up. But what you just said is like, oftentimes our unresolved traumas, anxieties, fears, concerns, if we're not dealing with them directly, it's going to show up and it's going to come out as a projection on our children. And
Yes.
again, one of my favorite interviews with Dr. Shefali, I can't remember whose podcast she was on, but they started and they're like, well, first thing we want to know, how do you not screw up your kid? And the first thing she goes, too late. Like you're going to screw up your kid. Like, let go of that perfection thing.
Exactly.
We are imperfect, and there's no perfect way to raise your child. There's no perfect parenting methodology or approach. There is you doing depth growth work on yourself, you holistically maturing and taking care of yourself. And as you do that depth work, you inherently do what is best for your child, and you can show up and mirror and model and see the kid in front of you and see their strengths. But
Exactly.
I want to know your thoughts on, so as you know, we work with a lot of parents and they are in the depths of some pretty intense mental health, addiction, challenges. So these are parents that have a child that is maybe struggling with a tremendous amount of depression or anxiety, self-harming, substance use, risk-taking, sensation-seeking, impulsivity. And so many times these parents will come to us at a place where it's very urgent and they're seeking a lot of like behavioral methods to stop the negative behavior. So my kid is self-harming severely. Please, can you make it stop? My kid is using illicit substances and has a tremendous amount of risk taking and impulsivity and is using these substances. Can you stop it? And of course, we always say, look, we can't behaviorally control your child, but we can do a lot of positive influence. We can carve sacred space. We can build relationship trust with your child, and we can hopefully offer them arenas that are more appealing to them than the negative choices they're making, so that they themselves start to want to gravitate towards different decision making. And so we work with a lot of these youth for them to become more conscious, for them to become more aware of themselves, why they do what they do, and to really tune into what they care about and what they're passionate about. But these parents will be at such a place where they're emotionally exhausted, they're desperate, and they're so fearful and anxious that any of the conscious parenting talk, it's almost like silly to them, because they're like, I can't, what are you talking about? I cannot even think about myself. My kid is doing these things that it's so harmful. I have to put all the focus on that. I'm wondering if maybe you can talk about the paradoxical nature of how, if you don't work on yourself, it exacerbates your child's struggles. But I'm just wondering how we encourage these parents to really step in and do that work when it feels so awkward, because timing wise, they're like, what are you talking about? I can't take care of myself right now.
Right. I mean, yeah, I can imagine how that must feel. I mean, all they're concerned about is their child, right? Saving their child. And so much of conscious parenting is focusing on having a connection with your child. And when children go often in those directions that are self-harming and not the typical, not what we want for them, it's because they're searching for connection. They're searching to feel good, right? They're using drugs to feel good because they don't feel good about themselves. They're not getting that connection. They're not getting that sense of like, I'm good enough. Yeah. And so for parents, I think often they need to first try to find one thing they could connect with their kid on that is totally separate from anything they're going through, just to find a little glimmer of joy. It could be, what is the kid like? Maybe he likes cars. Take him to, so I'm actually going through a struggle with one of my own children. And he recently got diagnosed with epilepsy about a year ago. And he has been experimenting with some drugs and things like this. So I needed to find that connection. I mean, he's going through a lot, and he's a little boy who thinks he's 15, but he thinks he's got it all and he can figure it out. And he's so tough. And I'm sure that comes from, again, generational patterns, him being just like his father, who was like his grandfather. But he loves motorcycles. So one day I just took him and we went and we checked out motorcycles. He can't drive them yet, but he got to sit on them. It was just a moment, a short moment to not worry about all the other negative. So that's one thing. Find that one little moment that you can try to connect with them on. But yes, I know the conscious parenting sounds like, oh, it's not going to work unless my child is 2 or 4. But it really does. The only negative is that it takes work. It
Yeah.
takes time. It takes awareness and the ability to be humble and say, you know what, I'm not perfect and I have screwed up and I'm only human and that's okay. And what are my triggers and how am I reacting? I mean, the funniest is that my 11-year-old, my daughter, will often call me out on my shit. She'll be like, you're not being very conscious right now, or you're going to say this, or you're going to do that. And she'll be like, right on, because she's heard it. She's experienced it. And so it's beautiful.
Yeah.
My past self would have gotten mad at her for talking back.
Right.
But now she's literally slapping me in the face with my own information because she knows it.
Yeah.
It is a hard process. It is not a fix. It's not a quick fix. It takes a strong person who wants to be able to say, I've messed up and why have I messed up? And once you start peeling back those layers and really looking at what happened, you can start mending that bridge, because that's all our children want, is to be connected. They just want connection 100%.
Yeah.
And it's so great that you're giving them that. You're giving them the space to feel seen and connected and valued. And so, but parents can do it too. You can do it at 25. You can do it. It just takes time.
Yes.
And it takes consistency. But also, I will also say, I mess up. Like you said, you don't just become a conscious parent and then, oh, I'm so conscious and everything falls into place. No, no, no. My old habits still rear their head because they are so ingrained in us. I still get triggered. I still will catch myself and be like, I can't believe I just said that or I just did that.
Yeah.
But I'm human and it's okay.
Yeah.
And that shows my children that it's okay to be human and it's okay to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing and then come back. I mean, it's about growth. We're not robots.
Yes.
I mean, that's also not, you can't be like the perfect mom. That sets your child up for more issues, I would think, because they're expecting themselves to be so perfect, and that's impossible.
And
So
Jessica, you bring up, it's beautiful what you said about finding a moment and it all being about connection,
yeah,
because I think, and it makes sense. I have so much empathy for the parents that we work with because they're going, what are you talking about? We don't have time to go look at motorcycles. We don't have time to go to a baseball game. I don't have time to take them. If I take them to a concert of their favorite artist that they've been wanting to go to, then I'm rewarding this bad behavior that they've been engaged with, or all the ways that they think. Or I will find that parents carry a deep amount of shame and guilt, and they feel like they've already missed the window to connect with their
yeah,
child. But
yeah.
most of the time it's because they're not doing anything to connect with themselves. So
Right.
they become so neurotic, so consumed. And again, it's the stressors of the modern world and global
Mm-hmm.
capitalism and our task-based existence. So parents
Yes.
will lose their heart and their soul. And next thing you know, they're not doing anything in their life that brings them joy, that they care about. And then they're taking that and looking at their kid, and out of the out of a good intentional place going, let me help you get a job and you need to function and how are your grades and where's school and why aren't
Right.
you doing
Right.
and but like you said, energetically, your children, no matter what age, want a connection and a tie,
Hmm.
whether they will admit to it or not. So even as
Totally. They won't admit
right,
it.
right, 17, get out of my room, don't talk to me. I want to you still
Seriously.
got to keep trying to make that connection. And I love
Yeah.
how you said it's not like it's got to be this grandiose thing. It's just got to be a
Mm-mm.
slowing down, coming into the present moment, and the ability to have something small with your child that you go, now's not the time that we're talking about your responsibilities, what you got to do, whether or not you're working on your negative behaviors. Now's the time where we go engage in something together that you like, and I become curious about your growth and what you're
Yes.
interested in right now. I want to see the world through your eyes. And then
100%.
I love what you
Yes.
said, Jessica. There's a TikTok trend going on right now that's like um, kids joking about trying to bring up to their parents stuff that happened in their childhood that they're like, and parents just totally denying it, just being like, "What are you talking about? That never happened. You weren't abused," or whatever the thing is. And there's this, there's a cultural shift that I see happening where, like you mentioned it, generationally how we looked at discipline, punishment, whether
Yeah.
or not you were spanked, whatever the things are, there's a whole older generation that will go, what are you talking about? Trauma.
Yeah.
I'll show you real trauma. It was called World War II or whatever
Yeah.
the, you know what I mean? And they're
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you have no idea.
Totally.
It literally becomes the embodiment of you think that's hard.
Right.
When I was your age, I had to walk uphill both ways in the snow to school and do. And again, I think it's parents wanting to give their children perspective,
Yeah,
but
but it means nothing to them. The kid's like, la la la, what are you talking about? You're basically speaking Greek. I
yeah,
mean, you might as well. It's
it sets up a tug of war. Whereas
yes.
if you're mature and you've done your own work, your kid could bring anything to you and you start to be humble. And you don't have to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was the worst parent. But it's
Right.
just you're comfortable enough with yourself to go, you know what? I want to hear what that was like for you because
Yes.
I also want to share with you what was going on for me when you were
Yes.
4, 5, 6, 7 years old. Um, but it's really important for me to hear your lived experience and the pain that you went through.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that you're talking to me about it. And what you're
Exactly.
doing is, yeah, you're just opening up a space where you can talk to your kid and say, yeah, I'm not perfect, but I'm still here
Hmm.
and I want to
Exactly.
work on my relationship with you now. And
Yes.
that's going to be continual, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, as you grow. I want to understand who you are, and I want you to understand who I am, and we grow in conjunction with one another in our relationship.
Hmm. Hmm.
Requires listening and
Hmm.
communication and forgiveness
Yeah.
on both levels. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. And I think that's the goal, right? The goal is to get to that level where you can be open and talk with your child like that and they're receptive. But I'm sure so many of your parents probably aren't there yet, or it takes so long to get there.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on one thing you said about consequences. And one of the main areas that parents get so uh, messed up on is not letting natural consequences happen
Yes.
and instilling their own consequences, thinking, oh, you didn't do this, I'm taking this away. You didn't do this, I'm taking that away. I mean, I tried doing that, especially with my middle child. Even as being a conscious parent, I will say I will still went back to the take the phone away. And then I was like, what am I doing? That is not a natural consequence. I'm just punishing him. And he also was like, what are you doing? This does nothing. This doesn't change my behavior. We weren't getting to the root of the issue, which was that he was in an environment that wasn't good for him. He was trying to make friends and felt alone and unseen in this huge school. And so he was searching for a place to feel safe. It wasn't the phone, it was the environment. And once we were able to remove him from that environment, it's been a really different kid. And he has seen, because you can talk all day long to your kids, but it's often like the Charlie Brown, like wah 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 wah. They
Yeah.
don't hear you. They don't. It's the actual you making a change, helping them. It's the actual act that will then be the biggest impact of them to say, "Oh, okay, that okay, maybe mom was right," but they're never going to tell you that. But
Right.
but it's making those little movements, little, and they're often tiny or big. I mean, it's just every situation is unique and different. Every child parent relationship is unique and different. That's why there's no, like, some people say to me, well, my kid's not sleeping at night, what do I do? It's not you do this, it's just not.
Right.
What is the dynamic? We have to go back and we have to, like, deconstruct the dynamics and the bedtime, and we have to talk about it and look at it. And how's your energy? Huge piece here. How is your energy when you're talking to your children?
Yeah.
If you're PO'd and tight-lipped and tense, their reaction to you is not going to be good.
Right.
You really have to look at, like, how would you talk to a friend? That's how you need to talk to your child in terms of your energy. It's the energy you put out.
Yep. And they've done all type. I think about Dr. Bruce Lipton's work, and he
Mm-hmm.
talks about that we give off waves of energy, wavelengths and energy, and
Yes,
that's what we are. We're cellular beings.
exactly.
And when we get, I was even talking to Julie about this, but he says, like, all those hippie terms like good vibes, bad vibes, that's vibrational wavelength energy that we are putting out as molecular forces with one another. And he says, when we're children and we're really young, it's the most in tune. And then we learn
Yes.
language, and he says language was designed to hide feelings. So it's this
Mm-hmm.
complex thing that we can use and not look at how we're actually feeling. But if you close your eyes, the vibrational energy of being around somebody that's safe, calm,
Yes.
um, and then the vibrational energy of somebody that's got all this other stuff, anxiety, fear, and kids pick up on that. And
Uh-huh.
and so I think you're speaking to it beautifully, where you're encouraging, be mindful of how you are energetically when
Yeah.
you're engaging with your children. And
Exactly. And you can't sit there and nitpick on them all the time about the laundry list of the negative things they've done. Because
yeah,
could you imagine, and we teach parents, you have to put yourself in their shoes. If you were going to work and your boss just berated you every moment about everything you did wrong, you'd want to get the hell out of there. You
oh
would
yeah,
not want to be there.
yep, yep, a
So why
thousand
would a
percent,
kid want to be at home when they're constantly berated?
yep, a
It's a
thousand,
negative environment.
yep. Jessica, you're awesome. I wish we had more time.
I know.
I want to have you and Julie on together at some point, and then we'll do some more series. But I'm so grateful for you in
Thank
every.
you.
Yes, and so tell people, how can they get a hold of you, and is it okay if they reach out to you even with just like an informational question?
Absolutely, 100%. You could, I guess, post my email or our website. It's
Awesome.
atlantaconsciousparenting.com. It honestly is a bit of a doozy because conscious is a little hard to spell. So maybe we'll change it one of these days. But my email is jessica@atlantaconsciousparenting.com. And our phone numbers are on there. We also do give a free first session, first half an hour, just to see if it's a good fit, if people feel like they like what they are getting. So please reach out with any questions, or if you want a half-hour session, fine, whatever you want. We're just here to serve. We say, and Dr. Shefali says this, and it's just something that speaks to me so much, is that to heal the parent-child relationship is to heal the world. And it really is, because so many so many adults that are walking around, it's because, and who are hurt, it's that they never healed that relationship. They're still, as adults, 60, 70, trying to please their parents.
Yeah.
You're trying to do right. And that's just, it's so sad. We wait 9 months, 10 months to have these children, and then we just don't always usher them through this life the way the best way, the way to help them grow into the people that they're meant to be. But thank you
Yes,
so much. This has been a joy to talk to you.
you are fabulous. I'm so grateful to know you and Julie and
So
Atlanta
are we.
Parenting. And I'm going to let our listeners know there will be more to come, because we're going to set up a time for you to join the parent webinar that I run, and we'll be doing some cool collaborative stuff. But I'm just so grateful for you.
Thank you, Wes. Me too. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.